Hey, we are in Chicago for the 2019 United Soccer Coaches Convention. If you're at the convention, if you're an attendee, come see us. We're on Podcast Row. We have a table. It says Total Soccer Show on it. Come say hi. We met a few people today and it was really, really good. We're doing drinks. This Friday night, 9 p.m. at Maria's, which is on 960 West 31st Street in Chicago, obviously. Taylor and I and the Cooligans, Alexis and Christian, we're meeting up to meet for drinks. So that's Maria's, 960 West 31st Street in Chicago, this Friday, 9 p.m. And welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by that man who's always in my hotel room. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Some would say you're in my hotel room. So there we are.
My name's on the reservation. So we are in Chicago for the United Soccer Coaches Convention. We're in our hotel room doing a listener question special.
We sure are.
People may be thinking, Taylor, where's part 3 of the Premier League midterm report?
Yeah, they can keep wondering that. I guess we're aiming to have that out maybe this weekend?
I think it's going to be more like next week. So we came to Chicago thinking, hey, we'll be able to do that while we're here, but there's just so much happening here that we're not able to get the Premier League midterm report out.
I'm going to say we can get it out Sunday. I'm going to say I'm going to say I have the belief in us to be able to get it out late Sunday. Yes.
I admire your ambition. Mm-hmm. I admire your ambition.
Mostly because it seems like by next week it might be a little too late to do like a mid-season review when we're on week 23. Like
maybe Newcastle fans just want an extra week
stay of execution
to improve their grade. Yeah, we'll also know a lot more about Man United after they play Spurs.
This is true.
I'll say that.
This is true.
I would say that. Okay, are you ready for some listener questions,
I suppose
Mr.
I am.
Rockwell? Okay, first one comes from Mark Gardberg. Mark says, for 40 plus years, I've seen two kinds of kickoffs with minimal innovation. A series of back passes for the centre-backs, for the possession-minded, or a long hoof to runners sprinting down a flank, creating a 50-50 jump ball. Which do you prefer, or what's the better alternative?
Well, I think of those two, probably the back pass, because I think the hoofball long never really works. I remember using that in youth soccer, that the idea was like you kick it as far as you can, as close as you can to the corner flag. Yeah. So you pin the opposition back, and then they have to take a throw in by the corner.
I think I like that idea. Because at least you know what's going. I think you're in control of the situation then, right? You send them back, you know what's going to happen, and then you all press up to block them out when they take the throw.
Unless you miss kick it, and then you just give them possession, or you give them a goal kick, and it kind of defeats the purpose. So that's the thing. Maybe it works if you're using a pressing system. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a thing you could do. The other difference would be, like at least in my lifetime, has been that you don't have to play the ball back first nowadays. You can play the ball forward. So I think you still have to pass the ball. I don't think you can just start dribbling. I think it's one of those like indirect restarts.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of sort of, if you're feeling it, going at the opposition right away. Like if you do a kickoff straight to Daryl, you could do that one, and then you can go straight back. That's the change. That's what it is.
Yeah, you used to have to pass it forward and then go backwards. Now you can just turn around and pass it backwards.
Right,
I was going to let you finish to see if you figured it out before the end of
There we go.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, and so so then you only need the one person in the middle, but I still like the idea of like the pass forward and kind of go at them and see what the opposition does. Well, it's like a combination. Like you can have the two people try to pass their way through if you want to go that route, but I just like the idea of going forward a little bit and see if the opposition steps to you right away.
Yes.
Because the only thing I don't love about the direct back pass is it's almost always, like back pass to the midfielder turns to place it to the center back plays it wide plays it back to the center back, and you kind of have put yourself in the opposite position to hoofing the ball along and trying to force the opposition into a throw-in. Now you're sort of playing it out of the back and maybe coming under pressure right away.
I think you're inviting pressure. If you go backwards, then you're inviting a team to come and pressure you with the ball, right? I would say the long ball to a runner for a 50-50, I think it can work if, say, they've got a left-back who's not great in the air, and you send someone who is good in the air. Like England did this under Gareth Southgate throughout the World Cup, right? They would immediately go diagonal long. Harry Kane would run to the right and would challenge the opposition left-back in the air. And I think you're at least setting up pretty good odds in that situation, right?
No?
No?
I mean, aren't you just setting up 50-50 odds?
No,
And then
because
they can win the ball.
Harry Kane's much more likely to be better in the air than a left back in general, right? He's not going up against a big centre back.
I feel like that might be some England bias there, but
No, I'm saying there's a reason teams do that. I think that's the reason they do it is because they think there's an advantage in having a big guy go up against a fullback.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think there's much advantage there. I think when you get that advantage is when you do something like what the U.S. women's national team does, where they send like 7 people running forward. And you can do that if you're the dominant team and you expect to be the dominant team.
Yeah.
But that, to me, is where that works a little bit better. If you're just aiming for Harry Kane, maybe he wins that, maybe he flicks it on, maybe he plays it back, but that's a lot of maybes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing what the U.S. women do and you hoof it long, but then there's everybody around that player, even if you don't win it, even if the opposition wins it, you're still in a position to regain possession near their goal.
And you sent Haley Mace forward for the first 10 minutes to join the attack. That happened, right, in the CONCACAF Championship.
There we go.
How about the idea of shooting from kickoff? Because I've not seen professional teams do this. I've seen a lot of amateur teams do this, and I immediately have a negative reaction whenever I see that.
Why is that?
Because I think that's a very low percentage shot. The goalkeeper can see it come in for literally half the field away.
Yeah.
You're more than likely going to give up a goal kick or just give possession straight to the goalkeeper. And it always says to me that team's got no ideas.
I wouldn't go that far. I would say, like, I agree with you mostly, but I do think there's something to be said for, like, a sign of intent. And if that goalkeeper is, because I've had that experience. I've never shot from kickoff. I should say that up front. But like, I've definitely had that experience where the opposition is maybe, you can tell they're a little bit overconfident. You can tell they're a little bit cocky, and like maybe the goalkeeper, like we've had those games in our adult league where the goalkeeper will just be standing between the two center backs chatting, like sort of not
At
being
kickoff?
aware. Yeah, like sort of just not being aware.
Oh, then you shoot, definitely.
Exactly, see, there you go.
But
And
if
so
he's standing there ready, no.
I do think there's something to be said for if a goalkeeper is sort of goofing around, not really paying attention, even if you're not necessarily, like, obviously you're trying to score when you shoot, but there's something to be said for just letting them know, like, hey, we can shoot from midfield if you want to goof around. And
So-
maybe you keep them back just a little bit more.
I feel like what we're aiming at here as well is maybe there's not any great solution, because what you're doing is you're starting with the ball, all your players are in your half and all their players are in their half.
Yeah.
The odds are very much against you, which is the actual truth about the Hunger Games, right?
Yeah.
The odds are very much against you from kickoff in terms of having a productive attack, because it's not a counter-attack, there's no transition type moment, they're set up to defend, you're not set up to attack. So maybe there's just no good kickoff.
First of all, you've offended the Capitol. How dare you? Second of all, yeah, I think that's probably true, because if there were one good way to do it, everybody would do it that one way.
Yeah.
And so it probably comes down to who your opposition is going to be or the research you've been able to do on them.
Yeah.
Obviously, professional teams can do a bit more of that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and then maybe playing into your own strengths. So if you really do back Harry Kane, if that left back is 4'6" and definitely not going to win a header, maybe you can go long. But I like the idea of just probing a teeny tiny little bit just to see how they react.
Just to
see if they all, like, who comes and steps to you. Because we've had those situations, or at least I have, where the opposition forwards are so focused on cutting out the passes between the center backs and the midfield that they'll just run right past. The midfield will step, but kind of not be aware. And then you can sort of get into situations and you're like, okay, we'll just pass it right down the middle and do a series of 1-2s. So it is for me definitely a varied approach based on what the opposition is looking like they're going to do.
I think I would agree that the most exciting thing you could do is just dribble down the field.
Yeah.
And see how far you get.
Yeah.
Because at least all your players are back defending, right? You're not going to give up a counter-attack opportunity if you get your best player to just dribble at the opposition and just see how far you get. It's almost like a kick return.
Here's the thing is, that's where I don't think you can do that. Because I think it is sort of like an indirect where you can't touch it twice.
So it'd be a quick pass sideways, backwards, whatever, just to get things started. And then
that one person dribbles.
And then away you go.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, what I'm talking about is like a two-person tandem. So you could do that wall pass, and then if one person steps, they're sort of uncertain of who to go to at any given moment.
All right, and to bring it full circle, I think the one where it basically gets played backwards and ends up with the centre-backs, if you're a possession team and very confident, I would say the point of that is we start drawing the opposition out. Because as I said earlier, one of the disadvantages of kickoff is that the entire team is in their defensive half. So going back to your centre-backs, even though it looks super negative, if you're a possession team and one of those positional play teams that wants to pull teams out of position so you can exploit them, that's the point of doing it, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
All right. So hopefully that one's answered. Next question comes from David Majewski, who says, in December, Minnesota United signed an affiliate agreement with a brand new USL League One team with a slit crest, Forward Madison FC.
It's a Flamengo, I think?
MNUFC, that sounds right. MNUFC officials have cited the relatively close geographical location as a positive for the relationship. How do loan deals and other roster moves with affiliates work in MLS compared to, say, minor league baseball and Major League Baseball, for example? Can moves be made at any time concerning things like recent form or injury rehab, or are all moves allowed only during official transfer windows?
So first of all, the weird thing is with MLS and USL, it's not the same as the summer transfer window, winter transfer window, right? So the transfer, the transfers are allowed to go on mostly throughout the season, right? So that's not such an issue. We have first-hand experience of almost first-hand experience of this. Being involved with the Richmond Kickers, doing their commentary, and just being fans of the team and following the team. They had the exact same affiliate relationship with DC United since the start of that USL MLS affiliation, right? So I want to say it was 4 or 5 years. So we've seen exactly what this is, right?
Yes.
And it seems to be an agreement where about 4 or 5 players at any one time can be on loan from the MLS club to the affiliate USL club.
Yes.
But there's a lot of chopping and changing, right? And it wasn't always, I don't think, to the Richmond Kickers' advantage. And I can definitely say that now that it's no longer happening.
Yeah, I mean, strangely. So, first of all, I would agree with that. Like, I would agree with you mostly about it not being to their advantage. But I'd also say I would agree with your point about you can move whenever they want. And with that, I think that can be almost problematic because if you have a relationship, an affiliate relationship, where the lower division team is further away, that feels a little bit more like, I think I've talked about this before, but like Atlanta when they had the USL affiliate in Charleston. Yeah. If you send players there, they're not going back and forth. They're probably going to be there on loan for at least a couple weeks.
So you're saying distance is a good thing?
Kind of, yeah. Because for the Kickers, to your point, it was kind of DC the day of sending down the players that they wanted to get some match experience or some minutes. At least that's how it appeared to us. And so like a big part of that was a goalkeeper. So then they would just send down kind of whichever goalkeeper they weren't going to use, the third string goalkeeper. So I think when we were doing the Kickers commentary 3 seasons ago, maybe, or 2 seasons ago, it was... I think they had 6 different goalkeepers throughout the season that just kind of rotated.
The Kickers did, yeah.
Which can
but one
be
of them
fine.
Weirdly came from New England, right? Matt Turner was on loan from New England Revolution.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe distance sometimes doesn't impact things too much. But that's problematic to me because if you have the same goalkeeper back there, okay, he likes to come off his line or he doesn't like to come off his line or he's good in the air or he's not good in the air. And you can learn all these things. But if you are used to a goalkeeper who's going to scream at you and tell you where you need to be and you kind of come to rely upon that, and then the replacement goalkeeper that's been sent down isn't going to yell at you because he doesn't know your names because he's just shown up there the day of, it can be a little bit more problematic because now I'm waiting for Daryl, the goalkeeper, to yell at me and tell me to step to somebody, but I haven't heard anything, so I'm just going to keep backing off.
And then outside of goalkeepers, the outfield players, there's just the same problem of just a lot of chopping and changing and not to doubt players' commitment, but you're not as committed to the affiliate team if you know you're only there for 3 or 4 matches or if you've just driven down the interstate for just this afternoon and then you're going back. It's not as good as having a player contracted to your team.
I agree. Yeah. Now, the outlier could be, again, we don't want to throw shade or anything like that. We enjoy the Richmond Kickers. We appreciate all that they've done for soccer in Richmond. But it could be the case that was just that particular affiliate relationship. Maybe. And it might be that another team has a little bit more power to say, no, we want these 3 players or we only want 3 players and we want them for multiple weeks at a time.
Yep. And my understanding with the Kickers was that essentially it was a budget issue, right? Yeah. You get those players from DC United for free. So it obviously helps the Kickers if they're not trying to spend too much money in the USL that you get 4 or 5 DC United players for free, right? But then you're not in a great situation when you're not paying anything. You're not in a great situation to demand exactly what you need, right? No. You can't be we need a right back this week. We're desperate for a right back. Send us your right back. Because DC can be we're down to 2 or 3 right backs. We don't have one to spare. We can't fix your problems for you. You basically take what you're given, right? I'm sure there's a better relationship than that. Yeah. But ultimately, you sort of have to get what you're given.
And that's the other issue for me is that if you want that relationship because it means you can get those players and you have a deeper talent base to choose from as a result, you're going to want to keep that relationship going. But that means if Minnesota, in this case, sends you 3 players and you don't play any of them in that game or only one of them gets 5 minutes, Minnesota's going to be annoyed. And if you keep doing that, then they're not going to send you players. And then when you need them, they're going to be tough. You wouldn't play people. It doesn't really work to our advantage. So you kind of have to find that balance of using players that you need to the extent that you can. Yep. But it is still, I don't know why I chose goalkeeper because that almost feels like the one that could plug and play a little bit more.
If he stays.
But if you're playing, true. But if you're playing with a wing back who has a bunch of responsibilities, and if you even want to go the full Man City route of that wing back sometimes comes inside, it is another holding midfielder, and then you've got a guy coming in who usually just plays right back. He doesn't know how to do all that stuff. Yeah. And he doesn't know that that's the expectation. Yep. So that's where I think it can be a little bit problematic, even though you can kind of change them out whenever you need to.
So I have looked up the distance from Madison to Minnesota. It is 430 miles.
All right.
Is that to Madison's advantage? Because
I think so.
Too far to travel just for a day, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Richmond, for example, Richmond to DC is about 100 miles, right? It's like 2 hours, give or take.
I mean, and there were situations when it did feel like there were players kind of showing up like 2 hours before the game. That seems less likely given that distance. So maybe it does then work to their advantage to have some players on loan who can bet in, feel comfortable, get some minutes. Maybe they get recalled if they're succeeding, but then maybe they get replaced.
So I deliberately dodged the part comparing the MLS USL affiliate relationship to Major League and Minor League Baseball because I don't know how Major League and Minor League Baseball works. Do you have any idea? Like,
I think you can just send them up and send them down whenever you need to, or call them up, send them down. Yeah, I mean, you can swap them around, but it is a bigger deal, I think.
It's a bigger deal. Why?
Because this is maybe speaking totally out of school, because I have never been a DC United or Major League Soccer player to be sent to a minor league team. But I think because of Major League Baseball being like where it is in terms of baseball in the world, to be playing professional baseball
it's like the second best after Japan, right?
Exactly. But to be like, for example, the New York Yankees. If you're playing, and again, limited knowledge here, so I'm sure baseball fans are already angrily typing. But like, if you're playing for the New York Yankees, that's a big deal. And then to suddenly be told, like, never mind, we're going to send you to our AAA or AA team. It's not quite working. That's a huge blow. And I do think
soccer... to the player.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I do think soccer has a little bit more fluidity. I think that it's not so weird if you're playing, like, D1 to go to Major League Soccer, but, you know, we get some D3 people. And I think there's a little bit more of that, whereas, say, at the NFL... You're basically, if you're playing football professionally, you came from a D1 program. Like, it's kind of the way it works.
Right.
So I think it's probably not quite as fluid as maybe it is in baseball, but I think there's also probably more money in baseball to allow for players to move around a bit.
Okay, I will take that answer. I hope David does as well.
Richmond is, I think, San Francisco's AA team.
Yeah.
I think that's what we are. So if you're sending people to your AA team from San Francisco, it's a decent flight.
That's not a day trip, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
All right, we got 2 more questions on today's Total Soccer Show. But first, we have a new sponsor.
Tell us about the Mr. Grove.
I will first tell you that sometimes we get sponsors that make me think, oh, okay, these are some serious podcast sponsors. I've heard these guys elsewhere.
Yep.
Today is one of those days, Taylor Rockwell, because today's show is sponsored by Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club has everything that you need to look, feel, and smell your best.
And I think it's important there to note that the everything is kind of true, because if you hear Dollar Shave Club, you might just think like, oh, okay, like I've got a beard, I don't want a razor. That's where I am. But even then, you still got to keep those lines nice and clean, so you do need a razor for that. But they've got many other products. They've got lovely shower products. They've got oral care. If you just want to focus on those chompers, make sure they're nice and pearly white.
Shave, shower, oral care.
There we go.
And you can get, essentially, you get a subscription, you get the sets delivered. So, for example, if you are like me and forget to do your shopping on a regular basis, you can end up running out of toothpaste. You can end up running out of razors. You can end up running out of shower gel.
Yeah.
But with Dollar Shave Club, excuse me, I should learn how to pronounce the sponsor's name, right? Dollar Shave Club, you can get these things mailed right to you. All you got to do is go to the mailbox, and then you've done all your shopping for your beards and your showers and your teeth.
So you sound pretty excited. So we're obviously out of town right now in Chicago. We've not yet gotten to experience the beauty of Dollar Shave Club. You sound pretty enthusiastic, though.
I've been told that a starter set is on the way. So yeah, I'm excited to try it out. And obviously we'll let our listeners know how it goes when I use it on my teeth, beard, or everywhere, I guess, in the shower. I'll wash everywhere in the shower.
All right. Well, some people can wait and get the Daryl Grove review, but if our listeners don't want to wait, if they want to act right now, Dollar Shave Club has a bunch of starter sets you can try for just $5, like, as we talked about, their oral care kit. After that, the restock box ships regular size products at regular price. So what are you waiting for?
I'm waiting for mine to arrive.
See? There we go. Get your starter set for just $5 right now at dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. That's dollarshaveclub.com/TSS.
Thank you to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring the Total Soccer Show. I might start shaving properly.
All right. I might not start shaving properly because I still have the big beard, but I will use it, as I said, to keep the lines nice and clean.
Okay, next question comes from Sagar Surumagiri. Sagar wants to know, or says, it's been my observation, soccer fans, unlike most other sports fans, do not obsess with statistics. Why is it so?
The double pivot pod would agree.
Yeah, I guess
with them.
There are certain soccer fans who do obsess with statistics, but I think Sagar's right in terms of the general soccer fan. Fair? Yeah. Why is it so? Is there a historical or sporting reason why soccer fans don't obsess with statistics? Is it because the soccer statistics have not evolved enough? There's a second question from Sagar. Do you, as professional commentators of the sport, have a set of stats you keep for players and clubs or teams? And what is a good source for such stats if they are relevant?
Okay. I've got a couple thoughts on this one. I would like to hear if you agree or disagree, because I'm sort of going to besmirch your people for a moment here.
My people?
Yeah, because I do feel like because England created the game, we'll give you your credit. Yeah. He just said it so matter-of-factly. But the English, I think, for the vibe I've gotten from like 60s, 70s, and 80s English soccer is that they weren't about math. And they didn't really love counting. And if you were like, but look how many interceptions he got, that's probably not a thing that was going to be very much like appreciated, as opposed to like, what a great tackle. Oh, look how physical. Oh, great win. What a great goal.
Yeah.
And I don't think that like it necessarily statistics lent themselves to English supporters of that era.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that or no?
I would, but I don't think it's specific to England. I think it's global soccer until very, very recently essentially did not have stats that were sophisticated enough to really mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? Because I would say soccer's hard to count.
It's
hard to
agree.
quantify. I don't understand baseball stats. We're going to go baseball again, right? But I would imagine that if you're going to do what do they calculate? The batter's hit percentage or
batting percentage? Yeah,
batting percentage. Basically, whether they hit the ball or not, right? It's easy to calculate that, right? Because you know there's a defined moment where you're at bat and you either do or do not hit the ball, and then there's a result of like whether you get to first, second, third base or whatever, right? So what I'm saying is there's a moment and there's an outcome, and it's really easy to calculate. But in terms of like
baseball fans are again sending us angry messages.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I've probably got the terminology wrong.
You got it right. I just think like the modern day understanding is that like RBI and on base percentage are more important than batting percentage. Whatever.
Yes.
Your point still stands that baseball is a more measurable sport.
More measurable is your phrase. Yeah.
And I also think that like, and I don't think this is my soccer bias showing, but it may be. But I think it's also baseball, football, basketball. You get a lot more stoppages. You get timeouts.
Yes.
You get TV timeouts. You get time when you need something to do. I think baseball, it really lends itself to that. If you're sitting in the stands or the bleachers and you're waiting for like the sides to switch and new batters to come out, like you're gonna track everything and keep note of everything. I think that's a way to pay attention to the game. Soccer doesn't have those breaks. It's really, I don't even know how people calculate possession. That seems like it would be really hard to have two clocks just going back and forth. That seems like it would be challenging.
And my evidence for this, just that soccer is hard to measure, is that the one stat that people have always cared about, still do, but have always cared about, is goals.
Yeah.
Right? People have always cared about how many goals a player has scored. And I think there's still because it was easy to measure, right? And I think there's still a weird holdover. I'll see a lot of things where like a college player is drafted. We're here for the MLS and NWSL draft. And you're literally seeing some write-ups like he played 50 games at Stanford at right back and scored 2 goals.
Yeah.
Right? You'll get the how many goals scored stat because it's the oldest soccer stat for an individual player.
Yeah.
But it really only means something for certain positions.
Yeah. And I would say it can be even like a negative at times because like if you're a defender, if you're promoting a defender, like you're not going to say like scored 2 goals in his entire collegiate career. That doesn't help you. But where it can be really problematic is I think if you've got like an N'Golo Kante, like a midfielder, and it's like, oh, he's a midfielder who's in and around the attack, but hasn't gotten any goals or any assists. And it's like, well, that's not really his game.
Yeah.
Not to say that N'Golo Kante can't score or get assists. We know he can. But yeah, I think that it can be the kind of big stats can almost be misleading at times.
Yeah.
And don't necessarily tell you the tale of what the player can do.
But it used to be all we have, right? So do you think that explains why soccer fans have not historically been so into stats? My basic answer is that they just haven't been there to use.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it.
Because soccer moves and ebbs and flows, and it doesn't have those measurable moments like at bat.
I would agree with that, but I also think there's still something to be said for the idea that like stats don't necessarily tell you the tale of the game. Like and they may. Like if you look at he had this many interceptions and tackles and whatever, that makes sense. But what I mean is more so that's not a thing that you and I are ever going to be able to keep track of unless we are intentionally
in game, you mean?
Yeah. Unless you and I are intentionally focused on how many interceptions does N'Golo Kante have, I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to say like I think he had a few, but it's not going to tell us much. In the same way that, but like, and contrasting that with like a quarterback, you will probably remember like, oh, he's definitely had 3 touchdowns already. He's definitely done this.
Yeah.
He's thrown the ball a lot. And like, you're not going to necessarily track the yardage either, but it will confirm what you thought at the end of the game of like, yep, he had a bunch of completions. He threw for 400 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. That was a very good game. A soccer player, he ran a whole bunch but didn't score. that doesn't quite tell you the same story.
But this moves us on to 2018.
Yeah.
Excuse me, January 2019. There are stats. Stats are measured
There were
because...
stats in December 2018.
There were also... But I'm trying to say we're in the present. Companies like Opta Sports essentially do the very hard work of watching a game. They've defined all kinds of statistical categories and measuring all those stats.
Yeah.
So now you not only know sort of how many interceptions N'Golo Kante has, you will know how many pressures he has where he pressures an opponent. You will know how many clearances he has, how many blocks he had, how many... There's one that's like an interception but not, ball recoveries, which is where he's essentially recovered a loose ball, which is different to an interception. You now do have the data to have useful statistical profiles. But the thing is, I think the reason this hasn't caught on in a massive mainstream non-double pivot kind of way is that it's quite hard to know for the average fan to know which numbers to look at for different players. I think that's the hard part. Like for strikers, you can look at goals. For defensive midfielders, maybe you can look at interceptions. But because different positions have different stats to look at, it's hard to get it in the mainstream.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Here's my question for you. Would you also agree then that, like, have you ever seen a stat that was like he has 6 interceptions like inside the first 50 minutes? Like, I feel like you don't get that in soccer. Like, you don't get live updates of 6 interceptions,
that's interesting.
8 ball recoveries.
Yeah.
I think that always kind of comes after the game has already happened.
Yeah, that's
weird.
weird.
And I think with a lot of other sports, you're getting the stats, again, going back to the NFL.
It is available though, right? Because Opta does it basically live.
So maybe it's also just that it's not promoted or we don't see it as much displayed, so it doesn't kind of factor into our understanding of the game. But with the quarterback, again, he had 3 completions in that drive. You see those 3 added on to his game total. You kind of know what game he's having. If you don't have that statistic like live almost, then I think it's not going to factor into your thinking as you're watching the game.
Would you like that? Because I think I would like that.
I think I would too.
I'd like to hear N'Golo Kante has this many interceptions, this many recoveries. He's pressured the opposition this many times.
I mean, I would prefer that to like close-up shots of a player like blowing his nose while waiting for a goal kick to be taken, or attractive women in the stands, or the coach looking angry.
Yeah.
Like, we get a lot of those cutaways, which I don't think necessarily help us better understand what's happening on the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think maybe if N'Golo Kante had a shot go wide, if we saw like, oh, that's his, or no, maybe not N'Golo Kante, let's find a different person to pick on. If we said like Robert Lewandowski has had 6 shots go wide in this game, that tells you kind of in the moment like, oh wow, he is misfiring.
Yeah.
I know this now.
Okay, so if we do accept that there are modern stats, if you want to find them, and they can be useful, part of Sagar's question was, what's a good source for such stats? I mean, if you're willing to pay Opta all the money, you can get a license and have direct access to all their stats.
If you're willing to pay all that money.
If you're willing to pay all that money.
And I would say it also matters what league you're watching. Because I would like MLS Soccer has their website is great. When you go find the particular match you're looking for, you get the lineups, you get the formations. They will give you those stats. Usually you get the individual stats with a decent breakdown. That's really useful.
Oh, and I just want to interrupt to say, MLS Soccer has almost, in fact, I know they have an Opta license. So a lot of places like MLS Soccer, and I think some other sites that we'll mention, they have the Opta data and then they present it for you. Right, so you don't get all the data, but you get what MLS Soccer has decided is important from the Opta data. So you can see it. Yeah.
What other sites would you like to shout out?
I think we both visit Who Scored.
Yep.
WhoScored.com uses, I believe, Opta data, and they have a really good thing where you can sort by certain statistics. So if you want to know who has the most headed clearances in the Premier League in this season or last season or before, you can select various drop-down menus and find out like average headed clearances per 90 or per game. And you can see who has the most dribbles per game, who has the most successful dribbles per game. All that information is available at a website like whoscored.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other ones?
Definitely StatsBomb. You know StatsBomb?
I do.
So for people who don't know, Mike Goodman, who is half of Double Pivot, he's, I guess, a single pivot on his own. He's the editor over at StatsBomb.com. StatsBomb do a great job of solving the problem I talked about earlier, where you don't know what's important for individual players with their radars. Have you looked at the radars?
No.
So...
yes, I have, and they still kind of confuse me.
Okay,
which I think is why I don't look at them that often.
So here's how they work, to my understanding. They essentially look like a radar, right? If everyone can picture, if you're looking at a radar with the concentric circles, right? I guess how a radar works. And then they'll have various points, almost like a clock going around it. And they say for a left back, they will have stats that are really useful for judging left backs, right? So it'll be... passing, it'll be tackling, it'll be interceptions. It'll be more complicated than that because there'll be about 10 or 12 of them all the way around.
Are you thinking of sonar?
Sonar, maybe.
You talking about the thing that like pings and you see the rings go out?
Yes, so it looks like a sonar, but I think they're called radars.
Okay.
Radars may look similar. I don't know. But then you will be able to see that they'll use like a line that goes up to the top or not so much, and you will see how successful they are in each category. So you get like a snapshot, a statistical snapshot that you can look at of how successful a player is in each category. If they go to the edges on every characteristic, every statistic, then that's an incredible player that's doing everything right. But not many players do, right? So what you can then do is measure players' radars against each other. So you can look at all these right backs and see which areas they're strong in, which areas they are not.
All right. So is that question answered, do we think?
I think so.
Right.
No, we have a new question about radars and sonars, but...
I mean, I could be right. I don't know. I'm not a radar operator, so who knows? But we will move on to David Kishpaw, who asks, I've been an American soccer fan for a long time, and I've mostly figured out the deal with transfers, but I've realized I don't understand loans. When a team loans a player to another team, do they get anything in return besides the satisfaction of knowing that player is getting minutes? You sometimes don't even get that. Who pays the player's wages? I've heard of players being recalled from loans. Is that something that can happen at any time? I hope I am not alone in my confusion, writes David.
Okay, so David probably is not alone in his confusion, and I think there's one very big point that will solve a lot of confusion. There's not a standardized loan.
Nope.
Right? Or temporary transfer, as they're officially known. There's not just like one version of it. It's specific to each loan deal. And that's why it's a loan deal, is you essentially, the two teams will work out the terms of the loan deal. Sometimes the loaning club the club that receives the player will pay none of their wages. Sometimes they will pay all of their wages. Sometimes they will negotiate some sort of split. That happens a lot with players that are on very high salaries that teams are trying to get rid of, but the loaning team can't afford all the salary, so they'll maybe pay 50% of it. They get a player at a decent rate, and the club that's doing the loaning essentially takes half of their wages off their books for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and then it can be even more confusing because generally you don't have a fee attached to the loan aside from the wages being paid.
Sometimes you do.
Can have a fee attached to the wages, exactly. So then, I forget, there was one like yesterday that was an $800,000 loan fee. I'm sure that's probably not the technical term, but that's what I saw it written as, so that's what I'm going with. But so you can still even have that. So again, there's no necessarily set one way of doing it or one way of not doing it. But then the other question there, as far as I understand, you can recall. I believe then you have to have that probably inserted into the contract because you can have like a no recall provision.
Exactly. It can be anything you want, right? It can be a loan that can be recalled. It can be a loan that cannot be recalled. It can be a loan with an option to buy. It can be a loan with like an obligation to buy.
Obligation to buy, I was going to say.
And what do clubs get out of it if not money and financial aspects? You get your player getting minutes, right? That's what the loan club is doing. That's why Spurs have loaned Josh Onomah. Right?
Yeah, and I think maybe there can be situations when you put them out to kind of put them in the shop window when you aren't going to be able to do that. So if it's a player who you're ready to move on, you don't really want to give minutes to, they don't fit the new system or whatever, you can loan them out.
Well, they're poison. If they're locker room poison, it's a way to get rid of them.
Exactly. You can loan them out and then maybe they score 10 goals in their 6-month loan and then somebody comes in and makes an offer for them that they wouldn't otherwise make had they have just been sitting on your bench.
Yeah. I think we basically have covered it all there then, right?
I think so. It still seems very strange to me, like the loan system, just from like an outside perspective of the idea of just like, just go play here. Like it has always felt a little bit to me like, ooh, he's going on loan. That's not a good sign. And I think only recently have I changed my thinking on that.
Why so? What's changed your mind?
I think maybe just because more Americans seem to be going out on loan. But no, but I think it
like
is...
Tim Weah to Celtic.
Yeah. Exactly. See, there you go. That's a good example of like... That's one where I don't think I would have had a negative reaction at first because it is sort of like, oh, he's a young player. There's a lot of people ahead of him. It makes sense to send him somewhere. I think it's when it feels like you don't want this player anymore. Like if he's had, this isn't with Timothy Weah, but if it's a player who's maybe been there, had a couple off and on seasons, and then, for example, if Tim Ream went on loan from Fulham this window, that's not a good thing. That means to me that like they couldn't get anybody to buy him, but they don't want him on the books, so they're getting rid.
And so just to make very clear, that is not the situation. Right? It's just like an example that you've pulled out.
But it is sort of an age and experience and situation combination.
It's a young man's game. Being loaned in a positive light is a young man's game.
Yeah. Okay, here's one, for example. The Radamel Falcao loan to Manchester United, and then I believe also loan to Chelsea. That didn't make any sense to me. It really never did. Aside from maybe you get the wages off if you're Monaco and you don't want to deal with that.
I can't remember why they did that or what the situation was.
I don't know either. Maybe he just wanted to go, but they didn't want to get rid of him in the moment. But those are the ones that confuse me and make me feel like there's got to be other stuff going on. That agents somewhere then end up counting money.
I want to. David didn't ask this, but I think somebody asked me this on Twitter the other day. As with most things in especially European soccer, but mostly world soccer, the players can say no, right? I think Tim Weah was the example. Like if Tim Weah had like gone to Celtic and been like, oh, I don't like the training ground here, everyone seems weird, this isn't going to be a good fit for me, he doesn't have to sign the temporary transfer paperwork. He can say...
That would be illegal.
That would be forcing him to... That would be forced labour. That's no good. So
it is not no good.
Mm-hmm. So in MLS, it kind of happens with trades because you're employed directly by the league, right? And that's part of the CBA, part of the agreement of being an MLS player is you're an MLS player, not a specific team player. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have full control of your own destiny. In world soccer, you very much do. You can say no to a loan, but usually it's a player wanting a loan because they're not getting first team minutes, so they want to go and get some.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I have a question for you then, because I'm wondering if you have. First off, do you have the same like? Do you have a negative feeling around loans, or are you sort of like, yeah, loans are fine, whatever?
I think they're fine, whatever. What I think is that at any team, you've got a lot of players, it's the constantly evolving situation, and your face and your game might fit one year, and it might suddenly not fit the next year. And there might be somewhere where it's just like, we play a high line, you're not that fast, you're really good, but you're too slow for the way we play. You'd be better off at this low block team. Go get loaned to Burnley.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there are lots of situations where it makes a lot of sense and it doesn't have to be something you're embarrassed of, right? But I start asking those questions when it's an older player. Whereas with a younger player, I just think, oh, it's a hunt for minutes.
All right, then let me ask you this. Because your example there was one Premier League club loaning a player to another Premier League club.
Yeah.
Like, as an example, like Brooks Lennon being loaned back to Major League Soccer. To me, when that happened, I was like, okay. Like, that's probably that. Like, he's going to stay in Major League Soccer at that point. Like, do you have that same reaction of, like, once that... If it's a young player going to a league, like, across the ocean, to me, for some reason, that feels like that probably is going to end up being a permanent deal.
It depends what your expectations were for Brooks Lennon, right? I think we got to a point with Brooks Lennon at Liverpool, which is where he was, where it was obvious that he was not going to crack the Liverpool first team. No. So it made sense to go somewhere where you're going to get played, right? And obviously, I think he went through, he definitely went through Real Salt Lake's academy. So it made sense if they actually could use him as well. And I think his career's gone well since, right? I mean, if anything as well, he was a striker at Liverpool for a while, then a right winger for a bit at Real Salt Lake. Now he's a right back and quite a well-regarded right back in terms of Major League Soccer. You could argue his career is on a positive trajectory in a way that it wouldn't have been if he was just still playing for Liverpool's under-23s.
Yeah.
So, I have a positive take on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because actually, I think you've kind of swayed me a little bit. This may not make sense to anybody but my brain, but here it goes. Because I think I always see like loans as weirdly independent of the final outcome of like, oh, the loan of Brooks Lennon, it's we want to give him minutes and give him experience. But obviously, if you're the selling club, to your point, he's not going to crack that first team at Liverpool. But no one is just going to buy some kid who's been in their academy. So then, of course, it makes sense to loan him out to a place where it seems like maybe they will end up buying him. He gets those minutes, he gets that experience, and now, because he has that, he has a year of playing time, now maybe that valuation goes up a little bit as opposed to, oh, it's an academy player, we don't know what he's capable of, we'll give you $100,000.
Yeah, I'm not even sure Liverpool sold him. I think he eventually just went on a free transfer back to Real Salt Lake.
That'll happen.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that might be the case.
Either way, loans better than I thought they were.
All right, speaking of things that are better than they thought they were, this episode of the Total Soccer Show was pretty fine, I believe.
You had low expectations?
I mean, we're in an odd setup, right? We're doing it in a hotel room, we don't have our usual studio, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you give me that weird look. All right, so once again, Premier League midterm report. It's not done, but it will get done. Don't worry, Newcastle fans. We're going to talk all about your team.
Yeah, we are.
We'll have more content while we're here in Chicago as well, right? There's lots of people to meet, lots of people to talk to. So expect more episodes of the Total Soccer Show over the next couple of days. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.